So yeah, look, welcome to this panel, and thank you very much to the team at Sheffield DM for having me. As Georgia mentioned, I was fortunate enough to speak at the virtual event in lockdown, and they were very kind enough to send me some lovely beer. But yeah, look, I'm Azeem Ahmad. Better to know as Azeem Digital because people have a real issue when they get to my surname. It's not like a choking. So I haven't legally changed it. It's just easier to call me Azeem Digital. I do have a podcast, and I am absolutely going to shut it now. I'm not going to be that guy that just talks for 15 minutes. But let me spend 10 telling you about myself. I've got three fantastic panelists here, so rather than do them a disservice, I'll let them introduce themselves.
Hello. I'm Nicky. What else do I want me to say? So I work for Evoluted as an SEO executive. That's all you're getting for now.
Yeah, I'm Liam, and cheers. I'm co-founder of a boutique agency called 80, and we do web development, photo and video, and web design.
I'm Surena. I'm a freelance copywriter and journalist. So, yeah.
Okay, brilliant. Going well so far, yeah. So we're talking all about digital marketing career choices, and if you see me looking down here, it's because the questions are at my leg. I'm not nervous, but I think the best place to start, I think, is with you, Nicky. I'd love to know what are your first marketing roles, and what learnings did you take from them?
I've had quite a few marketing roles. So I did marketing communications and advertising at Sheffield Hallam. Forgot where I did it then. And then after that, I started at Sheffield Wednesday, the charity side of the football club, doing just general marketing for them. And then I went to Derby County Football Club. Still have absolutely no interest or no involvement in football at all whatsoever. Just worked in the industry for 4 years, that's it. And then after that, went into performance marketing at Vivid. Shout out Z. And that's where I started with like SEO and PPC and getting to more of like that level stuff. And then and now I'm at Evoluted. More specialist. So yeah, I started out very, very broad, and then sort of like continued to narrow in, and found myself in SEO.
Nice. And yourself, Liam?
Yeah, so I kind of got into marketing like accidentally. I first started out doing film and TV studies and did that at college and at uni as well. Didn't really know what I wanted to do coming out of that, so I knew I wanted to do something creative. I was just looking around at different marketing roles and found a bit more interest in it. Started working for an agency, Bigfoot Digital in Barnsley, which was a good entrance to everything because it was kind of like a mixed bag as like a marketing executive. So I'd kind of gone in there saying, I can help you do, video marketing, and then just ended up doing a bit of everything, which was good. Even like bits of SEO, but just wanted to start like specialising, and moved over to a different agency called Walnut Creative, again offering the same thing but still ending up in the more generalist marketing role, which went a little different because that was sort of like a new agency that built quite rapidly. So going from a video marketing role to like a marketing manager and marketing director, I loved all that sort of stuff. But now I've kind of come full circle again, where I'm mostly doing photography and video, but with a background knowledge of sort of like how to use that from a marketing perspective.
Nice. I'll have to tap you up later about how to improve this. Yourself, Surena?
I sort of was all over the place. So I started in journalism. It's like something I wanted to do when I was 14 and did 2 weeks of work experience on a magazine. And I was like, that's it. That's what I want to do for the rest of my life. And then realised journalism's absolutely brutal and pretty soul-crushing. And in the meantime, I had a blog on the side. This was 2015. And my ex at the time was like talking about SEO, and I'd just listen in because he's in the industry. And I would just be like fascinated about how like we could get our articles. I was working at OK at the time, and I was like, how can we get our articles ranking better? Like, how do we slog to hit these like 1.2 million page views a month? And so I started messing around with keywords and like trying to figure out how to shuffle those about. And by the time I finished at OK, like I was done with the industry. And he was like, oh, why don't you try digital marketing? Like, you know, you've got some SEO knowledge now. Like, I'd learnt some basics of keyword research. And he introduced me to a digital marketing agency. And they said, you know, we want you doing a bit of everything. Let's see where your skills are. So it was a bit of keyword research, a bit of auditing. And then I started dabbling in digital PR. And this agency, it was just like quite difficult learning. The boss wasn't too keen on sitting and training everyone, and I was learning as much as I could independently. But in the meantime, I'd heard about this other agency, Verve Search, and went for an interview with them. And initially I was like, oh, you know, I want to get into the tech side. I want to learn all of those things because it looked really cool. And I don't want to do PR because my tutors at university were like, don't go to the dark side. You've done journalism, don't go to PR. And I was like, that's where the money is. But yeah, so we went there and they were like, no, you're doing digital PR. You've got all the skills for it. So why don't you do that? So I did that for 3 years. Really got like the bars of landing links and being able to implement SEO into other areas because it was a pretty good agency for like letting you dabble in different bits. So yeah, from there I just sort of carried on, went down the copywriting route as well and like figuring out keyword research, content auditing and stuff. And yeah, now I'm just freelance copywriting.
Nice. Great panel, because you've answered some of my next questions. So I'll move swiftly on shortly. For me, very quickly, I started agency side, and I'm very grateful that I did. I spent a few years at an agency. I was very tunnel visioned into PPC and paid search. And after a couple of years, I just thought this can't be everything. So I just thought, right, I'll try and branch out. I'll try and learn as many sort of areas as I can because I didn't want to tie myself down into being like a one area specialist. And now, as I was explaining to yourself earlier, pretty much everywhere except TikTok, if you can put an advert there, I've probably tried it at some point. So I'm very much now a generalist, which is a lovely way for me to segue into the next part of my questions. Before I do that, though, just by a show of hands, who would class themselves as a generalist marketer? Okay, and who would class themselves as a specialist? And there's like 4 of you at the back that's unsure. That's cool. So on that point, and I'll start with you again, would you say it's better to start your career as a specialist or as a generalist?
From my experience, it was so much better starting off in a general way, because when I came out of uni, even though I did a marketing degree, I still had absolutely no idea what I wanted to do in marketing. I didn't even know the word SEO or PPC, even after doing a marketing degree, because it was more like the traditional side of marketing. And it wasn't digital focused really at all. And even after I did 2 roles in digital marketing, I still hadn't really done anything. Well, I was doing SEO stuff without even realizing I was doing SEO stuff. And I think it's better to start general, because then you can sort of have a taste of different types of areas. Whereas if you just go into like a specialism straight away, you don't, because I think there is quite a lot of crossovers between fields. You don't generally know exactly what you fit into or what you would enjoy. So I personally would say it's better to start general, try and dabble in different sort of things and just see what you enjoy most.
Sen, how about yourself?
No, I think you're wrong. No, I agree. I 100% agree. Because that's how I started off as well. And I said I'm also do photo and video. I also, my opinion is the more niche you can get, the better. But I also do web development. And they're 2 very different things. But I was in a similar boat when I started as a general marketeer. And then picked up web development later on just because I thought it wasn't something I was capable of doing. But at the time, I always had an interest in the technical side of SEO, but more so web development itself. So it kind of opened my eyes to that, which was similar to like my experience at college and stuff. I initially went to do games design, and they're like, no, you suck at maths, so you can't do that. So I had to do like a media course, and then because I did that, then I figured out, oh, right, so you can make movies and take photos and stuff. So same sort of stuff. If you broaden your horizons, then yeah, it depends. People have different sort of like career trajectories. You might come out of uni thinking, I want to be this thing, so there's no need for me to try different things. But I think, I don't want to say the majority of people, but I think a lot of people, could use the help kind of figuring out what they want to do.
So I'm going to remain impartial, but it's 1-1 now, so you've got the deciding vote here.
I completely think generalist is a better way to go. I found it to be better. I think, now, even though I'm in copywriting, there's still a part of me that wants to dabble in different areas and learn about things. I was speaking to people literally last week, because to me, I've been on like the sort of quite niche element where I've ended up in copywriting and in digital PR in the past. And so to me, like PPC and stuff seems like this big mystery, and like I'm clueless about it. And they were like, no, we think that about digital PR. So I was like, okay, well, maybe there are some more skills to learn. And I think you can always keep learning. It's great with agencies and teams as well, where you can just ask them. I remember I used to work with Areej, who's amazing in the industry. And I'd be like, at lunchtime one of these days, like, can we go through this? And can you talk me through this tech bit? Because it seems terrifying. And she was like, yeah, absolutely. So I think there's just so much to learn. It's always changing so much. So I think, the more you can learn, the better, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And my 2 pence remaining impartial is that I think if you're very junior or very new to the industry, without being too specific, I think it's really important to learn the basics and the fundamentals. I can't even say the bloody word. To learn the fundamentals before you start looking at the bigger picture, like strategy and how all these things fit together, which will really help you, I think, progress in the industry. Again, lovely little segue into progress and moving through the industry. I'd love to know, and I'd love to hear about, and I'm sure the audience will as well, a time where you have done really well or progressed in your career. What was it about that tell us about it, and what was that situation? How did it help you thrive?
I feel like every movement that I've had in my career has sort of been like a big change, and therefore like they've all been significant, so it's hard to pinpoint like a specific thing, because I do think, spiritual, everything happens for a reason. And I can't really think of like a specific thing that happened, but probably when I started doing or was told what specifically SEO was, because even though I'd been in the digital marketing industry for so long, I didn't know that things that I was doing, like editing like content and copy on websites, that was really having like a huge overall effect on SEO, and like website in general, and rankings and everything like that. I don't really have a specific thing. Maybe I've just not done anything. To you, Liam.
Do my job for me now. See you later.
It is hard to pick like a moment. I think because I'd sort of like picked up coding and development more seriously, on a more serious level, like later in life. I think a big deal for me was when I first started joining that development community. It's very daunting, like you were saying earlier. There's certain things where when I was managing a team, I used to walk up to the dev team and I'd see just VS Code with a ton of HTML, and I'd just be making jokes about not knowing what it said. And just be like, oh yeah, I know what that is, that's good. And I'd always like assumed that wasn't something I could do. So then once I did it, that was a big learning curve for me. That kind of started a bit of learning and self-development thing for me, which falls into other areas because I read about or like practice different skill sets that I don't necessarily pick up and use as a career or anything. And then just learning that there were so many people out there really supportive about it, because I think everyone has a stereotypical idea of what a developer's like, and they're not always, the image is not always the nicest person, but it's a really supportive community. And then working with people, well, Sean and Tom, who work with you guys now, who were massively supportive as well. So they felt like there was some mentorship and stuff. And I don't think that answered your question, but I don't know.
Yes, it did.
For me, it's quite tricky because I've gone through like different industries. I went back to journalism after digital PR. But I guess there were moments in digital PR where like my confidence was so knocked by journalism, and then I'd just get my boss came up to me and he was like, "You've completely changed the way we do digital PR because you've suggested, you know, from a journalist perspective, like, including expert comment in your pitches and stuff can help." And then I ended up getting a promotion pretty closely linked to that. So that was one big one. And then getting a role as the SEO editor at The Mirror, controversial because I know some people hate the thought of that. But we initially started, I think the desk started about 6 months before I joined, and they were just, it wasn't really anyone who'd focused on the aspects of SEO that more traditional SEOs would. So I was like, let's just start making tweaks. Let's start like reformatting how we do our articles and our headlines and stuff. And I think the views went up by like 2 million within the first month and a half, just from like small changes and just actually answering the questions rather than leaving these articles as like a complete mystery where the reader's just like, I've gained nothing from this. So yeah, I guess that was a pretty big one. And just, yeah, I guess you'll probably have seen it as well over time. Like some of the clients that you end up winning, you're just like, oh my God, okay, I actually can do this stuff that I didn't think I could. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was very fortunate enough very early on in my career to say that Fox Films were one of my clients, and I was like, oh my God, like I've been in the industry like 5 minutes, and these guys spend like millions of dollars on films, so I was like, oh, panicking. But me very quickly answering that question, in terms of progress, very early on in my career, structure, I craved structure. I just wanted to progress as quickly as I could. I remember I was saying to my manager at the time, I was like, right, how can I progress? Not in terms of salary, but also through the industry. And he was like very black and white. These year objectives, I'm not ashamed to admit, I printed them out, had them on my desk. Every day I would look at them. I was tunnel visioned on all of them. And I was like a dog when it came to the end of that year. I was like, look, I've done them all. What's next? And then, yeah, like I progressed through there. And what's interesting and slightly hypocritical now is that the team that I work with, there's so many different people in terms of their styles. They don't crave that. They just crave freedom and creativity. I used to work with somebody very closely, and we were polar opposites. The example would be, we need to get from A to B. And I always say to my team, especially the ones who need creative freedom, we need to get from A to B. I don't really mind how you get there, as long as it's within the remits of the jobs. You've got to do it. This person that I work with, she was very like structure-driven, list-driven. She's like, I'm going to get from A to B, and these are all the steps that I'm going to take along the way, and we'll meet 3 times a week and discuss the whole journey. And I was just like, probably why I've got no hair. But yeah, moving on. The point that I mentioned there about that individual, he was very much a role model for me, almost like a mentor. So starting with yourself, I know you kind of touched on it briefly earlier. Surena, what would you say? Have you had a role model? Have you had a mentor? Someone that you've looked up to that's helped you?
Yeah, I would say like at Verve Search, I had a manager called Alex Cassidy, and above him was Hannah Smith. And the way they rebuilt my confidence, because it wasn't quick and it wasn't easy, and I'd be going to him and I'd be like, Alex, I feel like I'm failing, like I'm halfway to link target and it's like 2 weeks to the end of the month. And just the way he talked me through it, and like the way they both made sure I knew that I know what I'm talking about. It's just like imposter syndrome and stuff. And just learning from them, and the way he managed our team. Like we had a team of about 13 digital PRs. This was back in 2018, 2019. It was just the best environment. It was like we were getting results, but we were also like having a good time with it. And we were really motivated because of that, because there was that balance, and it wasn't just like do this, or if you don't meet target, you know, you're going to be fired or whatever. So I think it was learning that and management skills from him, and also just the methodical ways he like sort of approached everything. It was like, yeah, there's a deadline coming up, but we also need to keep our ethics and our morals where they need to be to get these results. So I guess that was a big one for me.
And you?
Yeah, I feel like there's a couple for me. Like the first one being my older brother, who I work with, because he previously did work as a freelancer for years, and he's helped me out massively. I've always looked up to him for different reasons, but then he's been like a bit of a mentor on the business side of things, and just helping to understand as like a creative or like a freelancer your worth in your role, and like, you know, understanding self-development and all that sort of stuff, and helping me with structure, because I like need that. And then the flip side of that would be Glenn, who I used to work with, running an agency with, who kind of like the opposite of that, but was very much like work hard, play hard, like the definition of that. So I feel like a combination of both of those is that I've got as much structure as I need. Someone who can be like a serial procrastinator, but then I also, you know, don't get too overwhelmed with it, and, you know, try and enjoy the journey as well. Because sometimes it's kind of like, might be a stressful day, but then you think, well, you know, could be a lot worse, and there's a reason why I'm doing this, and then, but yeah, so a combination of that, I think, is a good mix.
Absolutely. Look, I've bought you time now, so we're all expecting a brilliant answer.
I was actually thinking, so I wasn't listening to any of you were saying. Is this on? Yeah. Cool. Yeah, actually, yeah. So I mean, I always thought that I was like a creative person, and just solely was only good at sort of like creative things. And then when I started at Vivid and had John Jackson, some of you may know, as a manager there, and that's when I first started doing SEO, and the more like technical side of SEO started to creep in, and I was like, that looks really hard and really technical and really mathsy and really data driven, and that's not me at all, because, you know, when you've had like an idea of who you are and what you are capable as a person for so long, and so you see stuff like that and you're like, no, I'm not even going to try. Like, that is just something I know I can't do. And then sort of having someone there being like, well, like, you can do it. And yeah, that was like a massive thing for me. And then being like, oh, actually, like, yeah, like if you're breaking things down into steps, I think sometimes more like data-driven stuff or anything in a spreadsheet can look like a bit technical and overwhelming, but then like breaking everything down, yeah, it's just something that now like I feel like, oh, I am capable of that now, and I never thought of myself as doing that, and then that is sort of like led on to like my mentor is like, who's Deck now, who is just the most loveliest person in the world, and like has brought my confidence up from like here to like here. It's literally what, like a year ago today, I wouldn't even think I could like sit in front of people. I mean, I'm not looking at anybody, but I wouldn't think that I could sit in front of people and talk about myself and other people. And then yeah, that's only because of Deck. Woo.
And you've not been paid to say that? No. Brill, how are we doing for time? We've got time for a couple more? 10 minutes, right? Oh, bloody hell, we fly through these. Okay. Let's talk about qualifications and learning then. So I know that you've all briefly sort of touched on it. So for me, very quickly, I did a degree a while back. I did have hair. It was in journalism and new media. New media now is what we know as social media. And literally, those two things kind of set me up for where I am now. I didn't always want to be a marketer. Full disclosure, I wanted to be a football journalist. The idea of getting paid to watch football and then write about it deeply interested me. And then when I realised just how much work goes into it, and how little pay, that is true, I very quickly sort of bottled that. But in terms of sort of qualifications and learning, I mean, I know you've all mentioned your own individual roles, but what about for people in the audience? Is there anything now that you think, right, this particular course or doing this will help someone become a better marketer? And I'll start with you, Liam, this time.
I can't think of any like specific qualification. Again, we're talking about being generalist versus being more focused on a specific role. I think, again, it's very corny, but like starting with yourself on the personal development level. So as long as you've got a good core and you understand yourself and you're happy with who you are. So I've been in a very similar situation as to like what you were saying about self-confidence and having the confidence in your own role and thinking, actually, I can do that. And as you said as well, seeing something that looks daunting, but figuring out that, right, it is accessible and I can do it if I try it. It's just, yeah, I think as long as you work on yourself first, on your own confidence, then you're sort of like invincible. It kind of flows into stuff like as an agency or as an individual, like working on pricing, because I used to always struggle with that. But now I'm quite happy to turn around like confidently and say, this is how much that's worth, because it's how much, you know, I'm sort of worth. And then, yeah, just try not to sound like too much of a hippie, but just centering yourself basically in what you do. Because I struggle a lot with, you know, like anxiety and depression and stuff. So having looked into all the fluffy self-help stuff, some of it does actually work. And then I found that kind of flows into your work life as well. And then you just become more open to other opportunities and to receiving other people as well. And then it's how you end up doing stuff like this. And
Bro, that's really useful advice. Thank you very much for sharing that. How about yourself?
Well, from like an SEO perspective, I'm going to take this tip from my friend Beth. She one of the things that really helped her when she started SEO is buying a domain, like buying a website domain, and sort of like figuring out yourself, like getting a domain, and then figuring everything from an SEO perspective that way, and that will help you massively. Yeah, I'm just using Beth's skill from that.
And yourself?
I would say it's sort of the path I went down, but going to conferences and events like Brighton SEO, I went just before I was finishing at OK in 2017, and I was scribbling notes down. I was like, okay, I think I want to go down the content side, but I want to learn some of the general stuff. And I wrote notes and notes, and I was like tweeting away. And it was just really helpful. Like in the end, like when I was actually in it, I looked back at those and I was like, oh, actually, I've heard about that. I'm not totally like new to it. And it makes it feel a little less daunting. I also think, and I mean, I could be completely wrong, but I personally think that digital marketing is quite helpful in the fact that you don't necessarily have to have done marketing at uni. Like I did journalism, we barely touched on online journalism, I think, like you guys were saying. And you sort of learn it along the way. Everyone's really supportive. The like industry's so welcoming. Like just follow a handful of great people and your network sort of grows from there. So I feel like you don't necessarily have to have like a qualification per se. You can just sort of follow your interests. Yeah.
Brill?
I feel like my answer was just like way too spiritual, and you're giving actual advice.
I didn't need to add on to yours because I feel like that was really important. So I was like, yeah.
Yeah, but added to what you said, like I generally think like attitude is just like everything. I know so many people that didn't have a degree in marketing and got a job in marketing because they just had the attitude to be like, I want to learn this stuff, and that is what got them the job. So yeah, I just think good point.
Lovely. So in the last couple of minutes, I think the nicest way to wrap this panel up would be to look at what can be done better in marketing in general. So if there's somebody who, you know, thinking about your own, as you've mentioned, your own paths into marketing, is there anything that you think about people's entrance paths into marketing that you think is unfair or can be done better? And then I'll just completely randomly start with you, Surena.
I think the social media side can be a bit daunting, like Twitter can be a bit of a hot mess. And there are things that I still don't know that I potentially needed for some of my jobs in the past, and I'd be Googling away, but it would have been nice to feel comfortable enough to like tweet those questions out, but I just felt like people would jump down my neck and be like, oh my God, idiot, like how could you not know that? So I think the social media side could be better, and also maybe like, it's hard because there are so many resources, but it can be overwhelming. So maybe like a little hub with just the beginner's like guide and the best things you can go away and read to sort of give yourself a general overview and understanding of the industry, I think. Yeah.
What about yourself, Liam?
I'm going to drop a buzzword on you, gatekeeping. I think especially with things like web development, there is a lot of gatekeeping, and I struggled a lot, like ping-ponging between like different technologies and stuff when I first started, because there'd be so many senior developers saying, no, you need to learn this and that, and this is the only way to do it, and then there's so many different opinions. The same with video as well. It's people get hung up on what equipment you're using or any of none of it matters. It's all about the end result. But yeah, I think there's a lot of gatekeeping, and it probably applies to different areas of marketing as well. And obviously, the more you can do away with that, I think is probably the better.
Couldn't agree more. And how about yourself?
Yeah, I just want to like touch on like, because I know that I think there could be a massive pressure for people that are in digital marketing or want to get into digital marketing. It's massive pressure to have like a personal brand, and I think people can be put off by that they think like, oh, the only way I'm going to be successful in digital marketing is if I post on social media, on my own social medias all the time, and say, look, I'm doing this, and have a comment on that. And I think it's amazing when people do that, but people shouldn't feel like because they don't have the time, energy, emotional energy, like if you want to just like at the end of the day clock off from work, like I struggle with my own, like putting anything on my own social media, and the thought of then having like that sort of pressure like would make me sort of before be put off on social media. And so I'd hate to think that someone who was thinking about going into going into digital marketing, but thought, oh no, I can't do that because I don't want to be posting about it all the time, or I'm like, I don't have that sort of like confidence to do that. Then they shouldn't be put off by that. And also, I think if people are in like they've been doing SEO for a long time, or content or PR, and they want to try something else, I think it's so much easier than people think that it is to switch to another field, because especially if you're in an agency, like we've had someone who like was doing like PPC and paid media, and is now has switched over to our SEO team, and is absolutely loving it. And he had like the comfortable first, like obviously if you're in a good agency, they'll let you be like freely like try out different sort of fields whenever you want to, and learn about other departments. But if you don't ask, then you don't get. And I think some people are a bit scared to like start from the bottom, like they've been doing something for so long that they don't want to start from the bottom. But if you don't enjoy what you're doing, like what's the point? So like don't be scared to just completely switch up what you're doing. And because there's, especially in marketing, so many things are crossovers and transferable. Just like just do it. No one knows what they're doing anyway, so.
Absolutely. That is all brilliant advice. And if I can give two very quick add-ons to those brilliant pieces of advice. The first one would be, and you don't have to raise your hands for this, but just nod your head if you've ever been in a situation where someone has disregarded your advice based on the length of time that you've been in the industry. Yeah, quite a few nods there. So that is huge. I'm a big advocate of, I'm not going to swear, but it doesn't matter how long you've been in the industry. It could be 5 minutes or it could be 5 years. That person who's been in the industry for, let's say, 5 minutes in that example, they could teach you a completely different way of thinking, challenging your bias, your perceptions about everything, and make you a better person. So that's whether you're entry level or more experience, it doesn't matter. Length of time is not an indicator of quality of thought. That's one. And the second one applies across the board, and I'm definitely not going to use foul language, but put the salary in the job description. Simple. Again, competitive. You can't pay your bills with competitiveness, and I'd challenge anybody. Right, I haven't even got £1,000 to give you. I'll give you £1,000 if you call your energy company tomorrow and say, I want to pay my bill tomorrow competitively. They'll hang up the phone on you. You probably have Liz Truss around your house, confused, wondering why you haven't paid it. But anyway, we digress. The last part of this, And I think it's a lovely way to wrap up this panel, is just your final thoughts, your final bit of wisdom. If there's one bit of advice you can give to somebody to help them become a better marketer, what would it be? And I'm going to start with you, Nick, because you're laughing now.
I said it. Yeah.
Okay.
What I said before.
What you said before, okay. Where can people find you and follow you on social media? You mentioned that.
I don't even know what my... At Nicky Furness 95.
And what about yourself, Liam?
That shows how much you need to pay attention to your personal brand.
Not at all.
Yeah, I don't have any words of wisdom. I think you summed it up perfectly when you said no one knows what they're doing, which is probably not like helpful when you come to something like this, just to cap it off. But I think just to add to that, just enjoy the process as well, just like I said earlier. And yeah, I think I'm just Liam Gilroy on Instagram and LinkedIn, and that's it.
I'll try and keep it short, but I think what you said about not feeling daunted about changing completely, I wish someone had told me that a few years ago, because I was hating digital PR by the end of it, and I was like, I can't go backwards, so I can't go back. So I think that's a major one. And also what you said about, like, you can always learn from people, like the most junior person who's just joined. I was working on a digital PR campaign once, and I was tearing my hair out with it because it was about UFO posters and stuff. It was ridiculous. But I just spoke to one guy who was more junior, and I was like, oh, Andrew, can you give me a hand with this? Because I have no idea, like, what to do anymore. And within 5 minutes, he was like, why don't you do a roadmap? Why don't you do this and that? And I was like, oh, okay. And we got links, like, the next day. So I would just say, yeah, keep learning from everyone around you, basically.
And where can people find you? Social media?
At Surena Chande, which you probably won't be able to spell, but, yeah.
Brilliant. And then very finally from me, I'm going to pay it forward. So I was at a conference talk a few years back given by Amy Hopper, and she said something that resonated with me massively. She said, digital marketing is an industry where you can go to bed an expert and wake up a novice. So my advice would be never, never stop learning. And you can find me at Azeem Digital. If my SEO is any good, which it isn't, please don't test me. If you Google how can I contact Azeem, hopefully I should be there. But more importantly, please do me a favour and give a massive round of applause to these brilliant panellists.